Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a really fascinating neurocognitive theory. It's one that completely challenges how we think about the mind's operating system and its constant battle with the world around it.
So let's just start with this question right here, because it's a big one. What if the standard, everyday logic we all use isn't the only game in town? What if some minds, maybe even your mind, are built on a totally different framework?
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into this thing called the Base 13 Enigma. Then, we'll see how this system is actually built to grow and change. After that, and this is super cool, we'll see how it all connects to modern AI. And finally, we'll get into the big conflict. What happens when this kind of mind clashes with the systems we live in?
All right, first up, let's talk about the absolute core of this theory, which is called prismatic cognition. And, it all kicks off with a really unusual number.
So what exactly is prismatic cognition? Well, it's more than just a theory about thinking. It's a whole model for how a mind can adapt and literally rebuild itself. Now look, most of us run on base 10, right? 0 through 9, 10 digits, easy. But this theory suggests some minds are built on a completely different foundation, a unique structure called base 13.
So you're probably asking, okay, but why base 13? Well, according to the theory, it's got some really special properties. First off, it's a prime number, so you can't break it down into smaller equal chunks. This gives it a kind of cognitive integrity, like a solid, indivisible core. Second, it's parked right between base 12 and base 14. And the theory says this unique position allows it to act like a natural mediator, helping the mind make sense of conflicting information without getting boxed into a rigid structure.
Okay, so that's the foundation. But how does this thing actually work? See, the real magic of base 13 here isn't just the number itself. It's the process it makes possible, this constant, dynamic cycle of growth.
The whole system is basically mapped onto this super simple but really powerful rhythm of what's called recursive progression. Just think of it like this. It's a built-in mechanism for constant self-correction and growth, a process of small, tiny, day-by-day upgrades.
And this slide just shows you that process perfectly. It's a simple little formula, but it's profound. I goes to I plus 1. You start where you are right now, you take in some new information from your context, and boom, you arrive at a new, slightly improved state. It's not about huge, massive leaps. It's a blueprint for constant, gradual adaptation.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds a little abstract, right? A little theoretical. But this is where things get really wild. This exact logic has a fascinating parallel in some of the most advanced tech we have today. It's almost like a modern-day validation of the whole concept.
Look, if you've ever used an AI like ChatGPT, you have seen next token prediction in action. It's that core process where the AI guesses the most likely next word or token in a sentence based on everything you've already typed. It's a form of incremental, context-driven learning. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
And the connection here isn't just a vague idea. It's literally mathematical. According to the theory, both of these systems, this kind of human mind and AI, are built on the principles of projective geometry. That's basically the math of how you represent 3D objects on a 2D surface. Like how an artist creates the illusion of depth in a painting.
And this just nails the connection. In Verhage's theory, because base 13 is indivisible, it's the perfect anchor point for these complex projections, for mapping out possibilities. And guess what? AI uses projective geometry to map out the most plausible next step. So in both cases, you have systems that are fundamentally about looking at where they are now and projecting forward to figure out what comes next.
Okay, so now we arrive at the absolute heart of this theory, the central conflict. This is where we talk about how this internal, dynamic, always learning system smashes up against a rigid external world that, well, it just doesn't operate on the same logic.
And you just gotta love this comparison here. The compass versus the rock. I mean, it paints such a clear picture, right? On one side, you have this internal system, the compass. It's dynamic, it's based on base 13 logic, and it navigates using attention and self-inquiry. But on the other side, you've got the external system, the rock. It's rigid, based on base 10, and according to this theory, it often defaults to manipulation and just flawed ways of measuring things.
So for this compass to work, the whole journey has to start with one thing, attention. And we're not just talking about focus here. It's a tool for navigation. It's what directs all your mental resources to figuring out the why behind a problem, which is seen as absolutely essential for building real expertise.
And this isn't just some high-level philosophical idea, it's grounded in the actual hardware of our brains. The theory links this kind of deep focus to a specific brain region called the supramedullary nucleus, or SUM. You can think of this SUM as being like the conductor of an orchestra. It helps organize all the incoming information into a coherent, understandable picture. It's what lets us see the big picture. And what's really important here is that it's extremely sensitive to trauma and stress.
But the systems we live in, medical, educational, corporate, they often do the exact opposite. Instead of using attention to find the root cause of a problem, they focus on managing or suppressing the outward symptoms.
And here's a crystal clear example from the source material. When it comes to stress, the internal compass system wants to focus on the psychological cause, the etiology. The external rock model, though, it might just look at a biological symptom, like high cortisol, and try to medicate it, completely disconnecting the symptom from where it actually came from.
This failure, this refusal to focus on the core issue, gets summed up in this incredibly sharp and powerful phrase from the source material. A professional who apparently missed this crucial distinction was described as being dim-sum.
So what does that even mean? Well, it's a direct shot. It means a failure to engage with the deep neurobiology of attention and trauma. It means focusing on the surface-level stuff instead. It basically represents a systemic neglect of a person's inner reality.
So what's the end game for a rigid, inflexible system like that? The theory makes a pretty stark prediction with this metaphor. A system that can't adapt to the dynamic reality of the human mind isn't just broken, it's ultimately unsustainable. It's a rock that's destined to crumble. All right, let's wrap this all up. If you take anything away from this, remember these key things. Prismatic cognition is this really unique framework for neurodivergent minds built on the dynamic logic of Base 13. Its core method of constant incremental growth has a wild parallel in modern AI. And finally, this internal adaptive system is in a constant state of opposition to the rigid Base 10 systems that often end up suppressing it instead of supporting it.
And that leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to chew on. As we keep building more and more standardized, one-size-fits-all systems, are we actually creating environments that support the full, amazing spectrum of human thought, or are we just building bigger rocks designed to crush the compass inside all of us?